And I am so happy to be here on Enlightened World Network. As you may know, yesterday was the very, very first ever day of this live stream. And I'll remind everyone that this is going to be daily. The times will jump around, especially at first, but I will be bringing this live stream to you right here on EWN every day, 7 days a week. And it will take a lot longer than 1 year to go through A Course in Miracles, but we love the title 365. We're keeping it. So yesterday, I just introduced myself a little bit. And if you missed that, feel welcome to go back on EWN's YouTube or on the Periscope, on my personal Facebook page, Change Without Limits, anywhere. This video is up and I introduced myself a little bit, but quickly about me, I've been a course student and teacher for about 8 years. And honestly, it goes back even further than that. This course found me in 2013. And I do want to emphasize that it found me. I was ready for it. And this is work that I think I've been doing for a long time, even prior to discovering A Course in Miracles. So it's with a lot of pleasure and fun, and it's a real honor to be here with you. So that's a little bit about me if you did not see yesterday's live stream. Now, I want to invite you. This is intended to be interactive. I'm going to take some course principles and I'm going to put them in context of my own experience, which I hope will resonate with you in some way. My aim as a teacher is simply to show up and to share and to present my experience to you. And what I would say, as with any spiritual teaching, take what applies to you, because some things that I say will resonate with you directly. Others may not. And those that do, what I invite you to do is to take action on them. Because as you'll see, and you may know, A Course in Miracles is all about taking direct action. Spirituality is very much about experience. I know you've had a lot of experience. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, right? Watching this live stream, you would not be interested in the content that we're offering, but you are, and I welcome you. So let's talk a little bit about some course basics. Where I'm going with this, and you may be wondering if you're familiar with the workbook for students of A Course in Miracles. That's one of 3 major components of the course, and we will be starting it here on ACIM 365. We will be starting it on this live stream on Monday, February 1st. That is when I'd like to begin that. And I'll say quite a bit more about the workbook as we go forward. But I think this week, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about some of the philosophical underpinnings of the course and where it actually came from as well. If this is of interest to you, in other words, the question, what exactly is this anyway? And how did it come about? Oh, the answer is contained in the preface. And for those that are interested, the preface is very, very interesting reading material. I think from my experience, let's suffice it to say that with God, all things are possible. With God, all things are possible. Everything. And that is a statement that applies across the board. So whether you believe in material that's been dictated from spirit, from source, from Jesus in this case, from God to people, whether you believe in it or not, doesn't make any difference. Does it resonate with you? With God, all things are possible. And A Course, as you know, uses terms like God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit that you may be familiar with from Western spirituality, from Western religious traditions. Now, if you're not familiar with it, that's all right. It also uses terms from the East, such as the ego, which we'll talk about in depth. But the preface contains the story of A Course in Miracles, which was dictated to a woman by the name of Helen Schucman in New York City. She is a PhD from Columbia University, and she and her colleague, William Thetford, were in charge of receiving this material from the voice. The voice would speak to Helen. She would dictate this to William, who would copy this, and that became what we now know as A Course in Miracles. The voice later identified itself as Jesus, as in Jesus Christ. Absolutely, yes, the Jesus with a message for us. And the message is one of love. Now, you may come from a Christian religious background, from a Judeo-Christian background. Wherever you're coming from doesn't presume that you're coming from one particular spiritual tradition or another. It's for everybody. It's very universal. And why do we say that? Well, because it's about love. It's about awakening, or should we say, reawakening to love, which is the truth of who we are. It really, quite literally, is the truth of who you are. Now, I've had several wonderful spiritual teachers in this lifetime. One of them, a Tibetan trained Buddhist Lama named Michael Conklin, was fond of saying, nothing exists until you experience it. That's worth repeating. Nothing exists until you experience it. Once you do, well, then you're in for a wild ride. A beautiful ride that can also be painful at times. So as we go through A Course in Miracles, I guarantee you, if you stick with it, you're going to run up against your ego, pushing back, fighting back, and urging you to do anything but continue to practice these teachings and practice these lessons. Now, if you don't believe that any of these so-called enlightened states, that these loving states, these whatever term you want to use, exalted, whatever, they're all just terms, believe that you can actually experience the truth of who you really are, that's okay. Just show up right here. And I invite you to practice A Course in Miracles. Practice the lessons that we're going through and see if that doesn't change your mind at least a little bit. That's what this is all about, is changing your mind. So if you are interested again in the history of the Course, check out preface. I invite you to do that. In the next few days before we launch into the workbook for students, I want to talk about some basic course philosophy. And let's start from the very, very start here. We're going to start from the introduction. Now, this is not something that I'm going to do every day because there are passages in the course that are quite long, but the introduction is very short. So what I'd like to do is read that to you in its entirety. And then we'll break it down in the time that remains here on this live stream this morning. Now, I invite you to tune in here. I've got my phone up on EWN, and I am more than happy to take your questions live here. If I don't catch your questions live, know that I'll be looking through the comments afterward, and I will quite quickly do my best to answer them there. So, and I'll do that in a little bit here. So truth, I'm going to turn the volume off on my phone next time when I look at the comments. And there are 14 of them. So thank you for all who have commented. Let's go through the intro here. And it reads, this is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Okay, let's right there. Required? Does that mean everybody has to buy this and go through it? Well, no. What that means, quite simply, is we're all on a spiritual path. We are all awakening to love. We're awakening to the truth of who we are. Does it matter how you get there? No. Does it matter what path you follow? No. If it's leading you back to who you are, and in your heart, you know this, excellent, stick with it. Now, this path will resonate with some of you. It will not resonate with others, and that's okay. There are many, many spiritual paths for many, many different people from different backgrounds, from different parts of the world, yes, from many different cultural traditions with different proclivities that respond to different stimuli, everything. So what's required is that you show up, take one step, even if it's just literally one single breath, one single step back to who you really are, to the truth of love. Now, this is a Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. In other words, you can take as long as you want. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. All right. Our ego is probably rebelling against that, saying, I want to do it all. I want to do it my way, my way, my way, my way. Well, how's that working out for you? How's the ego's way working out for you? Not? All right. The Course goes on to read, it means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The Course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. Removing the blocks to your awareness of love's presence, which is who you are. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing, God, love, you, can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Now let's pay attention to this piece. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. What is real? Who you really are. Who is that? Love. Pick your term for it. You cannot be threatened. And nothing unreal, in other words, all of the other things that we add on to our experience, even actually exist. Herein lies the peace of God. Now, these live streams are designed to be short, approximately 15 minutes. And, well, I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. Let me leave you with this piece. A course is intended to present to you, to lead you to absolute truth. Nothing real can be threatened. Now, what is absolute truth? Now, if you're familiar with Eastern philosophy, that's a term that's used quite a bit in Buddhism. For example, absolute truth is held as in direct contrast to what we call relative truth is the world around us. In A Course in Miracles, it's the world of separation, where you drop an apple on your head, it's going to hit your head. It might hurt, might not, right? Newtonian physics, lots of branches of science, right? This is our daily experience, and we can say so much more about that. That's relative truth. Absolute truth is the ground of all being. You may have heard it spoken about in that way, Eastern philosophy. You may have heard it mentioned, well, as God. And absolute truth is simply what is. What's real cannot be threatened. And in several different parts of the course and in supplemental books and explanations and materials that describe the course, absolutely summed up in our language in just 2 words, just 2. God is, period. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means just that. In other words, all there is. There's ultimately nothing but love. A spiritual path, including A Course in Miracles, is awakening to the presence of love. In other words, as the intro puts it here, removing the blocks, removing the barriers to our awareness of love's presence. In other words, it's peeling off the layers that we use to hide our truest selves. All right. So, thank you for tuning in this morning. We are going to be back here every day. Now, I'll announce the time. The times are going to jump a little bit for at least a little while. There's no set time schedule, but tomorrow I'll be back here on A Course in Miracles 365 at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So I'll be beginning the live stream at about 5 minutes after. So about 2:05 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time, I'll be back. And the time, as the times bounce around, I invite you to catch the live if you can. And if you cannot, that's okay. Just catch the replay anywhere you catch these replays. And I really hope that you tune in to this marvelous, marvelous spiritual text and take all of these lessons absolutely to heart and put them into play in your life, into action. Okay, quick preview. Tomorrow, we're going to go through some more basic principles of A Course in Miracles, because as you may know, it uses language that is used in different ways. They're words that we recognize, but we don't recognize the context of them in common parlance. In other words, we use them out on the street very differently than A Course uses them. And it's worth, before we dive into the workbook lessons, it's worth going through in some detail. All right, well, thank you very much and for joining me. Again, I'm Tomas Garza, and I will get to your comments here. Thank you for tuning in live, and I will see you back here tomorrow on EWN. All right, this has been A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love.